everybody, it's me, Garrett Everett from Garrett Everett Blackwater. Just wanted to talk to you today about my filtration method. I use spongeless filtration, which isn't necessarily something you can buy in the stores or even hear about in your aquarium, but it's a method that I have kind of come up with on my own and have used to, I guess, work with the Blackwater environment instead of against it, reduce the amount of maintenance that I have to do on my filters, and generally just keep things moving along without worrying about clogs or any built up ammonia or nitrate producing compounds. So let's take a quick look and see how that works. So I use AquaClear filters in my two main tanks, the Blackwater pool, the 20 gallon, and this one, the 30 gallon. I really like them. I started out with them just because it's what came with the first aquarium that I purchased. But I've really learned to like what's going on in here. They've got a pump, really simple. It's just magnetically powered. We'll take off this lid here. So in there, simple pump. Works like a charm. Rarely gets clogged up with anything. You should clean it up, maybe once every month or so, just to make sure that there's not algae building up on it that'll make it work less effectively. But there's not really any moving parts in there to get caught up because it's magnetic. There's not gears that'll get wound up, or there's not a motor in there that'll necessarily get affected. Everything on the bottom there, see, the motor itself is a separate unit, so it doesn't even get exposed to water or grime or crap that's building up in there. The nice thing about it too, you can adjust the flow. So it's got two settings. So that was on full power. This is on like a half power, so the output changes a little bit. You can see that. Not necessarily a drastic change. It's more the output direction that'll affect it. So if it's on full blast, it'll project a bit more horizontally, whereas if it's on low flow, it'll drop it right down to the tank. So something about Blackwater tanks is because we've got all of this loam here, breaking down leaves, bits of algae, lots of creatures eating on this. It's very easy for filters to clog. I used a pre-filter sponge and a normal sponge because that was just what was recommended. I didn't really start experimenting with this until a couple of months ago, but it's working really well for me. So first step, I took off the pre-filter sponge. Now that's something that you might actually want to leave on there. Maybe I should dig it out. You know what a pre-filter sponge looks like. It just goes right on the end. It's a little cylinder, and it catches all the stuff. It's good for if you've got, if you're breeding shrimp, or if you're breeding small fish, even if you've got fish like coolie loaches, which I've got in my other tank. They like to swim into tunnels and figure out what's going on and hide in there. If they swim up into your intake and get caught in the motor, that's not going to be good for them. It's probably not going to be good for your motor. So if you've got that kind of situation going on, just leave your sponge on there. The downside that I found was I would clog up. I was cleaning it, initially I was cleaning it, every 3 to 5 days. Then it ended up being that I was cleaning it every day, and that's a lot of maintenance. That's like, you don't want to go in there, even once or maybe even twice a day and squeezing that out. One situation in which it is advantageous to have a filter that's clogging up every day. What's building up in there is little microorganisms and infusoria. That's perfect for fry. So if you're raising fry, that is a good time. You just grab it, you take it to your fry tank, squeeze it out. There's a bit of crap and stuff in there, but if you've got a separate fry tank, you're probably changing the water fairly regularly anyway. And all that cloudy brown stuff that comes out of there, that's really good for them. They'll be able to pick and choose what they want to eat. Something else that I've done, you can see here. Normally, you've got a little vent on the bottom that prevents larger things from getting caught in there. Serves to kind of diffuse the flow a little bit. I cut it right off of there because it was getting clogged up with duckweed, which means that the filter slowed down to a trickle, and that meant the filtration went way down. That's not good, especially in a tank that's botanical-heavy, because there is so much going on biologically. You want to be able to have that water turning over. So I cut the tip off of that. I used to have it, because these are modular, so you can put as many tubes on there as you want. If you get more than two, they work, but they work fairly ineffectively just because they have to pull the water that much further. So I have tried it with 3, I think, in one of my other tanks. That didn't work very well. It could barely kickstart itself. So that slowed it down a lot. If you are looking to slow down your flow, though, that's a great way to do it, as long as your motor can keep up. So inside the filter box, you can see I've got the Fluval Biomax. So you can get 2 sizes of this. There's Biomax, and then I forget what the other one's called. Biomin? I don't know. I use the Biomax because they're nice, they're large. I like to call them Cheerios. They've got a huge surface. They're very porous. So if you do have these, you get excellent amount of surface area for your bang for your buck. Usually you put them inside a little mesh bag, or at the very least, there's a basket that fits into these filters. Kind of goes right in there, and you can lift that out. Because I don't use the bag, I don't use the cage either. The cage, basically then, whenever I wanted to clean up my media, you'd have to pull it up, and they would start falling into the tank. Not a good time. It sucks to have to dig that out. So this way, whenever I clean it out, I just unplug the filter, just dump everything into a bucket of used tank water, swish it around, make sure that it's all clean, and then throw the media back in there. You don't want to use tap water, you don't want to use new water, you want to use aged water so that the minimum amount of die-off happens while you're cleaning these things. Because they do have such a large surface area, they're a huge support for beneficial bacteria. That's the only media that I have in here. I don't have a sponge, I don't have charcoal, I don't have filter floss, it's just these Biomax rings. So there's a lot of water movement around them. There's a few places you can see, because the duckweed is everywhere, there is duckweed right there. And that, a few stay in there. Occasionally they get washed out, occasionally they get stuck. Snails climb in there. I don't know if we can see any in here right now. But they get in there and they eat whatever's dead. They eat kind of the fungus, and then they crawl out and go back into the tank. So they love that. They keep that clean, and then you just wash it once a month. And that's all there is to it. So you don't have to squeeze out the sponges. You don't have to even, honestly, if you wanted to leave this going for months, you could probably do that. Wouldn't recommend it, just, be on the safe side. But because you've got no sponges that need changing or squeezing, you don't have any charcoal media that needs replacing, you just kind of set it and forget it. Is Aquatic Snow. I picked that up from, I think it was Blue Planet, but they call it marine snow there, and it's basically lots of tiny organisms, rotting dead stuff, mineral deposits, any sediment of any kind. It just kind of falls down. In the ocean, it falls down, several kilometers before accumulating on the floor and being taken care of by invertebrates living on the bottom. But in this case, it's not necessarily marine snow, but it's aquatic snow, and it's all the same stuff. So you can see here, I've got some buildup on my leaves. Now this is actually after I did a 50% water change today. It was a lot more dramatic earlier today before I did that. Now the water's a bit cloudy just because of a small bit of added sediment and just kicking things up from adding the water. You can be as careful as you like, but it gets cloudy once in a while. But it should settle up by tomorrow. But yeah, that builds up on the leaves. And so every day, once again, it was kind of like with the filter, I was getting in there every day and just knocking this stuff off of the leaves. That's doable, but it's kind of annoying. And so I knocked everything into the air, sucked it out, did a 50% water change, and I'm hoping that will minimize this issue from happening again. It'll still happen because the coolies, when they're digging around, they kick up clouds, and the flow in here, I do have it running faster than I have in the past, but it's still not a dominant flow. And that is also with spongeless filtration in this tank. So this is one of the downsides, especially if you're botanical heavy. As the leaves break down, they turn into a powder, and it just accumulates. So that can look really cool. It can be kind of detrimental to the plants, but you can also get some really cool, it's hard to focus in this, but maybe you can see that, just a hint of it. Anyway, it builds up on the branches. It looks really cool. I've shown this off in a previous video as well. So that is a downside. But the upside is I haven't had to go through here squeezing sponges and all that once again in months. So it is kind of set it, forget it. This is slightly less set and forget, but I'm hoping that maybe I might even do another water change after this, and should minimize the issues. I also use Spongeless Filtration in my internal filter that I've got on my 55-gallon upcoming brackish tank. Right now it's running as freshwater. Regardless, this is something that you can use in these internal filters as well, depending on the size of the cartridge. This one in particular, forget the brand, I think it's Top Fin, but it came with a sponge insert that had carbon kind of tucked into a hole in the middle. You can use that, but it will clog up quicker. Even this clogs up a little bit. You can see there a little bit of hornwort, dead hornwort, and plant matter and stuff like that, which makes sense too, because everything's just kind of floating loose in here. I just added a bunch of water with crap in it. So if you do have a large enough container like this, you can use the Biomax. If it's a bit smaller, I'd use the smaller version of this, whatever I called it, Biomin before. But yeah, it should work for this as well. So those are some of the upsides and downsides of Spongeless Filtration. If you do run a Blackwater system, I'd highly recommend giving it a try at least for a month. I haven't had any issues with nitrogen or ammonia spikes or anything like that that I've noticed anyway. They might have happened in between water tests. But the fish are fine, the inverts are fine. So give it a try. See how it goes for you. I really like the results for the most part. What I don't like about it, it's fairly easy to work with. So yeah, Spongeless Filtration, an excellent option for a botanical heavy system.